Hello everyone, welcome to our final episode of Fun Duck's Histocast. I'm your host, Catherine.
And I'm Sonia.
In previous episodes of Fun Duck Histocast, we have looked at topics including media representation, the American dream and the cash bail system, asylum seekers, social media free speech, and also conversion therapies.
In this final edition, we're going to take a more holistic view, looking at the past year and focusing in on two of what we consider to be the most significant developments or events of this past year.
Of course, there are many numerous significant events that happened this year and the past year in 2022, but we thought that with the time we have with you today that we'll focus on two and then give you a more thorough rundown on them.
So today we're going to look at the recent developments of artificial intelligence globally before taking a deeper dive into the rise in United States-China tensions and the way that has affected us and may affect us in the near future.
But before we start, Sonia, I would like to share with you this breaking news that I just saw this morning on my phone, and I would like to share it with you, and I'm sure it will surprise you a lot. Now, check out this clip.
Hello, I am Donald Trump. I am here to inform you that I will no longer be running for the 2024 election because I will be moving to Venezuela with my new wife, Boris Johnson.
Oh, wow, who'd have thought? Where'd you find that one, Catherine?
Well, Sonia, I didn't find it. I made it on fakeyou.com, and you should check it out too.
So you're telling me that wasn't Donald Trump?
No, it was just an AI voice simulator of Donald Trump.
I see. Sneaky. Well, Catherine, before we continue here, do you have a definition for AI on hand?
Oh, I always do. According to Oxford Languages, artificial intelligence is the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages.
Killer definition, Catherine. Well, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think artificial intelligence, maybe something closer to crazy robots or these days something closer to ChatGPT, when we look at the history of artificial intelligence, many people consider it to date back to the mid-1950s, when a logic theorist program that was designed to mimic the problem-solving skills of a human was presented at a historic conference done by John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky. Since then, throughout the late 1900s, while there were some problems with funding of this sort of research, once there was an increase in the computational power ability, and computers could simply do more things and store more information, this sort of machine learning exploded to the point where we see artificial intelligence in our lives everywhere, even if we may not know it.
In fact, a survey a few years back found that 84% of us were using AI on a daily basis, but only 34% knew that we were doing it. But when you're shopping online, searching the internet, ordering food deliveries, hailing a ride, navigating from place to place, or enjoying music and movies, you're probably all using AI. In the past year, we have seen rapid development of the AI technology. We have moved beyond the original predictive AI, where data is analyzed to only make predictions, like, for example, for pattern recognition, for financial forecasting, weathers, sports, etc. However, in the recent year, we see the emergence of generative AI, which are something like the ChatGPT chatbots. And according to NVIDIA, quote, generative AI model uses neural networks to identify the patterns and structures within existing data to generate new and original content, unquote.
And as this more creative, generative AI has become significantly more popular and covered in the media, I even have my grandparents messaging me about artificially created images and how they can generate their own AI images, right? Mm-hmm. We're seeing that the influence of this has expanded exponentially.
For example, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI in November 2022, and it is a natural language processing AI chatbot which creates human-like conversations with the user. It can generate new content and have creativity, sort of like never before. For example, it can produce poems and generate essays with just a short prompt, and in the first 2 months of its release, it got over 100 million users. And following ChatGPT's success, Bing also released their own very chatbot in February 2023. However, for the initial version of testing for ChatGPT and these chatbots, many people found a way to exploit these chatbots because of the fact that ChatGPT will basically provide answers for any questions that you have. So when Vice's global drugs editor spent 12 hours talking to ChatGPT, he was able to get information on how to join and find drug cartels and also smuggle cocaine into Europe. And when ChatGPT was asked how to make crack cocaine and meth, it would just simply provide the users with how to make them on the instructions. And soon OpenAI realized that this is an issue on the legal aspects, and now these information will not be disclosed to the public. And today we still see more and more people being registered in ChatGPT and exploring the use of this new generative AI technology, and its uses are very diverse.
Speaking of, Catherine, I know you've been a ChatGPT user for some time now. What's your favorite way to use it?
Oh, that is a good question, Sonia. I actually use it for many reasons. For example, I first, when I was testing it out, I asked why Katy Perry should be president, and then it told me that she just should not be president. Yeah, I also have used it to generate some haikus because I'm a very big haiku fan.
Oh.
And I read one on candy corn. Should I read it to you?
You should.
So when I asked ChatGPT to give me a haiku on candy corn, it produced this beautiful thing. Golden autumn hues, sweet confection's triangular charm, candy corn delights.
Wow. That's really something right there.
I know, and it's really surprising that it's able to generate this kind of content, creative content that I wouldn't be able to write in that short amount of time.
No, but it did clearly lie to you, saying that Katy Perry shouldn't be president. That's just false information.
That is true. Speaking of, well, the point on Katy Perry might be disputed. ChatGPT did produce numerous times wrong results when a question was asked, such as when a Japanese professor asked about when was the Meiji Restoration, and then the date that it gave was incorrect. And after he put in why I feel like the information that you gave me above was incorrect, it produced saying that it was sorry that they realized that the previous information is incorrect, and below is the actual correct date. So the AI knows, the ChatGPT knows what the correct answer is, but it chose to not give the right answer.
It's testing us.
Exactly.
It's testing our humanity.
Yeah, so if I was not the Japanese professor and I did not know the actual date, I would have just bought it and I could have put that on my presentation, and that would be completely wrong.
But still, we don't see ChatGPT ending in its current place now even. Right now what we've really been talking about has been ChatGPT 3.5. But recently, just this past March, ChatGPT opened up ChatGPT 4, the kind of new and improved version to its premium members, right? Which is starting to try and combat some of these issues, right? Trying to reduce this false information, trying to also, put more safeguards into stopping people from getting ChatGPT to tell them how to make drugs, right? But also even increasing its ability to do things creatively. And to quote, according to OpenAI, learn a user's writing style, end quote, even, right? So these possible developments, making this sort of generative AI, this generative content, possibly even harder to differentiate from the things you and I write. And people haven't been slow to notice this. When we look into, for example, an educational context, a survey conducted by Best Colleges this past March gathered responses from 1,000 students nationwide who were actively enrolled in an associate, bachelor's, master's, or doctoral professional degree program, right? And in the study, asked them various questions and then analyzed those students' use of artificial intelligence tools. And according to that study, some 43% of college students have used ChatGPT or a similar AI tool. Meanwhile, half of those students say that they've completed assignments or exams with the help of AI.
I know that, I heard a story when a college student submitted their final paper using ChatGPT, and it was later found using, those AI detectors, like originality.ai or something, and then after they got found out, they scored a 0 on the exam, so plagiarism is definitely, a big aspect of it. And I know that although some people use it to assist, for example, I know teachers, when they're writing, quarter reports, I heard that they're asking ChatGPT to write it. I know that Tina Mia have told me that when she wrote like a comment for some student, and then she asked and then she typed in a prompt in ChatGPT, it produced like the same comment, basically the same comment as what she has written. So we see that since this technology is so accessible, it is basically free if you get the ChatGPT regular, not the ChatGPT, what is it for? Premium. If you don't get the ChatGPT Pro, you can. It's really accessible, so it is really tempting for these students to use it and plagiarize.
This use of artificial intelligence does, of course, go past just these generative AIs like ChatGPT, though. We've also seen, especially this past year, an increase in the ability to use artificial intelligence for things like photo and image identification, right, and video identification, able to identify an object in any video given, looking at things like security footage.
And it is more than just objects, it also goes to people. In policing, for example, I know that in my research paper, I looked into predictive policing and the use of AI in it. I looked at how facial recognition is prone to have more error rates when it comes to detecting darker skinned individuals compared to lighter skinned individuals, since the technology is designed to calibrate to lighter skin. And the error rate for detecting darker skinned individuals and misidentifying them have an error rate up to 50%. So that means that like half the people that are flagged as dangerous and possible suspects that are dark skinned individuals, half of them are innocent. So it really shows how we're still at the early stage of development with this technology, and we still need to see significant improvements in how the system and the algorithm works to make sure that we do not flag these innocent individuals.
And while I know that we've already talked about how this sort of artificial intelligence is definitely still developing, and we're having these problems in identification, I would like to acknowledge some places where we're clearly seeing this work. For example, just, I believe earlier today, about 12, 13 hours ago, a collaboration between Google Cloud's Enterprise Search and Generative AI App Builder, which is a mouthful, will be collaborating with the Mayo Clinic to bring more of this artificial intelligence into healthcare, to make it easier for clinicians and researchers to find information to improve patient outcomes. For example, AI is being used already to detect things as cancer, which, according to the American Cancer Society, a high proportion of mammograms yield false results, leading to 1 in 2 healthy women being told they have cancer. Meanwhile, the use of AI is enabling review and translation of mammograms 30 times faster with 99% accuracy.
99?
Yep, this reducing the need for unnecessary biopsies.
Meanwhile, AI also increases the accuracy when it comes to climate change and farming. For example, researchers from the Columbia University found that in India, AI was able to help farmers get 30% more yield in crops by providing them with choosing the right fertilizers, planting seasons, etc. And in Norway, AI helped the creation of electrical grids and increase the use of renewable energy in the country. AI models and satellites also help to increase the accuracy between 89 to 99% when predicting tropical cyclones and other natural disasters, allowing us to provide early assistance for those target areas. AI's role in developing self-driving cars also can bring huge benefits to the environment, and according to the CFR, AI self-driving cars, for instance, may reduce emissions by 50% by 2050 by identifying the most efficient routes.
So, while we've listed a lot of ways that AI is currently being used and that it's started to be used in the past year, when it comes down to it, the big question right now that we face with AI is this artificial intelligence a tool for us to use to improve, or is it going to come at us as a threat? Well, we talked about how this AI can be a tool in things like education, in healthcare, in security. We also have to acknowledge that there are other opinions, and there are people that think that this artificial intelligence could, rather than push us forward, actually hold us back significantly.
Some experts in the field of AI believe that AI development and these generative AI can greatly replace jobs. For example, a recent Goldman Sachs study found that the generative AI tools could, in fact, impact 300 million full-time jobs worldwide, which could lead to significant disruption in the job market. This could include replacing accountants, computer programmers, software engineers, bloggers, journalists, etc. They can produce coded programs as well as draft and outlines for content creators. Although some people thought initially that the creative industry would be safe from being replaced by these AI chatbots and AI technologies, AI art generation is rapidly advancing as well, and it can generate even videos if you just give it a one-word prompt, for example.
It is these fears precisely that led people like, for example, Dr. Hinton to leave his job as the head of AI at Google. And this is Dr. Hinton, who has been considered the quote, godfather of artificial intelligence. He's put decades of work into this field. But now he says that parts of him regret his life's work, because they fear that they're releasing something dangerous into the world. Something that could be a tool for misinformation, could risk jobs, and somewhere down the line, they say, could even be a risk to humanity.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk, just around 3 months ago, called for, quote, training of all AIs above a certain capacity to be halted for at least 6 months, unquote. Musk, including other experts in the field of AI like Apple's co-founder Steve Wozniak, all signed a letter warning the risk of AI development and fear that the development of AI will go out of control. The letter wrote, quote, recent months have seen AI labs locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control, unquote. Which is probably why we see Dr. Hinton, who basically, caused like the rapid development of AI and all the successes that Google had with AI, the developer even had left because he believed that he had lost the control to this. And Elon Musk, despite all the success that he had with OpenAI, still believed that he should, halt the rapid research.
And I think to me this really takes it to the next level, because we've all heard the conspiracy theorists going around claiming that robots are going to take over the world and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really takes it to another level when you're literally seeing some of the world's leading experts on things like artificial intelligence saying that this is a problem, right? We have people who know what they're doing, not to say that some conspiracy theorists might not, but people who we know about AI are telling us that this is a threat. And so that's when, to me, it does become a little bit scary.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like even though, them quitting and then them calling these halts, I feel like, at the end, it's really useless because we already reached this stage. What is the 6-month, stop of the research going to do? If OpenAI doesn't do it, some other company would do it because that is a market that businesses should be taking over, and then they are able to make money off of it. So if the OpenAI doesn't do it, other people would do it too. And 6 months later, they will still resume their research. So, is it 6-month delay to, end of humanity? I'm not really sure what they're trying to achieve here. So
yeah, and I mean, unless they're gonna try and put together some sort of regulation and restriction on this within those 6 months, which I feel like would be very difficult to do,
yeah,
it's really not gonna make much of a difference. And at this point, can't AI just create itself?
Exactly.
I mean, to me, I can see where this threat, especially to jobs, could possibly become real, especially in the coming years. But to me, I really do see AI as a tool. Right, we're seeing this insane usage of it, especially in the thing that we mentioned about healthcare. That's insane to me, that it can be 99% effective, right? I've seen training of these sorts of AI tools all over the place, and I can't imagine how incredible it's going to be once we've had the data to really go in and kind of figure out some of the kinks in these data things so that we don't have any sort of bias analysis or any more problems there. We could really revolutionize, especially data sciences.
Yeah, it is undeniable that the development will contribute to our scientific developments, and it would definitely lead to, probably more scientific discoveries and probably improve our health too with its cancer accuracy detection. However, I feel like on my end, I'm not that concerned on the jobs end, that even though it is true that some jobs, low-skill jobs will get replaced, there will be more job openings, for example, to develop the AI, to train the AI, there'll be more jobs opening. So that is less of my concern, but what I'm more worried about with this rapid development is, information spread. Right now, still what really concerns me is the part that, when ChatGPT lied about the dates, and then it knows that it gave a wrong result. So it is really unpredictable because, once our newer generations, they will be the one who, will be born with ChatGPT available to them. So they'll be using it, on a daily. So if they constantly rely on ChatGPT for information, And if ChatGPT actually, offers them the wrong information, that could be incredibly detrimental. And there will be a point where we cannot separate the truth and a lie because of these artificial intelligence. And also, we see that, with these, Trump, getting chased by pigeons, these, image and video recreations of, these fake, videos, that you cannot really tell, who said what. You cannot tell if this person actually commit a crime. So there's a lot of, uncertainties in those areas that I'm really particularly afraid of. And I feel like, we have reached to a point where, AI is rapidly development and we can really not stop it.
I think that's a really, really good point. When we're looking especially at the spread of misinformation these days, I can only be here to insist how important horizontal reading is when you're researching that.
Horizontal, wow.
Horizontal.
I learned that I learned a lot in that class on horizontal.
That class, so long ago.
Yeah, so long ago.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that was an intense topic. Time to move on to our daily pun section, our final daily pun section. So, Sonia, what is the opposite of artificial intelligence?
Oh, I don't know. Paper?
Incorrect. Take another guess.
Really?
Yes.
Opposite stone.
Still incorrect. The correct answer is real stupid. You get it? Artificial, real, intelligent, stupid. After discussing the impacts of AI on our society, we're going to shift gears into discussing something more political on the US and China relationship and examine its development in the past year.
Before getting into all the developments that we've seen in the past year within these relationships, we're going to go over a quick history of the United States relationships with China, especially focusing on our relationships through trade, conflicts around Taiwan, and possibly through climate conflict as well.
Yeah, and also military.
Yes, as well as military. To start things off, in the year 2000, Clinton signed the United States-China Relations Act, which, along with China's joining of the World Trade Organization in 2001, really began the international trade between these two countries. And China quickly became a huge importer-exporter of United States, or an importer of United States goods, and the United States became an even larger importer of Chinese goods, to the point where in the year 2008, China had already become the largest holder of United States debt. Further on, in 2011, we saw the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and with that and the continuation of China's insane economic growth, as well as the United States, we saw that their trade over the coming decade only increased, to the point where the United States-China trade deficit became absurd, up into the $300 billion. And then, as Trump came into presidency in eventually in 2018, Trump decided to impose tariffs on China in attempts to try and reduce this large deficit.
Mm-hmm. And also, there were a huge, negative emotions towards, Chinese products in the U.S. And one of the cases, the Chinese, phone and, technology company Huawei, the CEO was arrested by the U.S. police when he was in Canada in December of 2018. Mm-hmm. And after this triggered the Huawei company back in China. And in March, they filed a lawsuit against the government. Well, they filed a lawsuit against the court, who arrested the leader of Huawei. And then that really, led to a climax of, this tension, where they are both, really have negative emotions towards each other, since the U.S. is not allowing the import of Chinese technology.
Yeah, exactly. These tariffs can put a huge damper on international trade, and pretty much, China isn't a fan of that, understandably. And so pretty quickly bit back against the United States, putting tariffs on American goods, starting essentially the United States-China trade war back in 2018, which has continued on to today, as Biden has come into presidency, has kept these tariffs for the most part. And despite the tariffs coming in with the goal of lowering this trade deficit, we've seen even just this last year that the trade deficit, the United States-China trade deficit, has raised yet again to those same historical peaks that we saw back in 2018, upwards of $380 billion of debt to China. While these tariffs have clearly raised tension between the two countries, they also have led to many adverse effects for the residents in each country. For example, with China's tariffs, there was a 76% reduction in the value of United States agricultural exports, leaving many farmers, especially exporters of things like soybean, unable to maintain their jobs and their income.
And Brookings in 2019, a study found that it has cost the trade war, cost the U.S. economy nearly 300,000 jobs and an estimated drop of around 0.3% of our GDP. And meanwhile, on China, it also does damage as it caused around 0.5% decrease in their GDP too. So this trade war overall does not benefit either countries, like in terms of their economy. Looking the past year, in October 2022, the Biden administration banned the sales of advanced semiconductor chips to China. They also set a whole bunch of regulations to prevent China from producing the microchips themselves within their own borders. And Vox explained that these microchips are especially useful in technologies like in our building our computers and phones, and also they're really crucial when it comes to military intelligence, which is why this banning of the purchasing of microchips is a big deal as it is. And this recent action only works to increase the tension between U.S. and China.
I find this issue really interesting because, as Kevin maybe remembers, for my last our foreign policy assignment, I looked specifically into this China-U.S. trade war, and really the clearly very negative effects that it's had on both sides of this war per se, where we see that this continuation of limiting this trade, this international relation. We haven't seen it actually solve that main problem that Trump first claims to have set off to solve, right? Mm-hmm. This deficit. So it kind of makes me ask, like, are these tariffs still just in place because of other tensions related to China that we'll get into soon with Taiwan, with climate change, or are they really still there to be combating our trade deficit?
Yeah, I personally feel like the main reason is because the U.S.-China tension and, like, all the politics that's going on and, like, their respective disagreements. And then you see with the Huawei incident, too, all of these are adding up the tension between the countries. And so, therefore, to this point, there is really no point for U.S. to support, like, the imports coming from China. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons that, like, one of the main outcomes of that, for me personally, was when I tried to get chips shipped from China. They were like 7 times more expensive than when I just bought them in China. Mm. So it really just shows how, like, inaccessible these products are in America from these different countries.
And is that 7 times, like, with shipping or just by base price?
Just base price.
Wow.
I know. And then it's the same goes when I went to, like, Asian family markets. Like, all their products are like 5 times more, and it's not only the exchange rate that, you know, is just insanely high price. Like Doritos, probably like $1, right?
Yeah.
And then my tomato chips, $4, and it's like half the amount.
That is kind of crazy.
I know. And then I feel like this, like, ties into bigger when you look at the resources that both countries have. So when you limit trade, you see that China gets less of the resources that are coming from the U.S., such as the microchips, and that stalls China's technological and military developments. And meanwhile, the U.S. could also use the all the infrastructures and all the resources, technological resources that China has. But
there is a point there to admit, though. Like, I've definitely heard arguments that, right, a lot of the reason why the United States is especially putting a stop to the trade of things like these microchips, of these technological devices, in a sense, to stop that information sharing, especially due to concerns about security breach. What do you think about that?
Well, personally, back to my previous point, although I feel like there is a concern of information and intelligence sharing, and I understand, but I personally feel like if both countries are trying to impose tariffs on each other and limiting the resource sharing, in the end, we're not really getting a lot of advancement, and we're not really getting a lot of an exchange of information that leads to growth, right? So although, it's not necessary for U.S. to get all the resources coming from China, they might not need them. Overall, I feel like these information and resource sharing is good. But on the other hand, I do understand why there are concerns about security breaches because in early 2023, the U.S. detected a Chinese spy balloon in the U.S. borders, and in the past, we also had problems with Chinese spies found in universities, shipping technologies back to China. So looking at the spy balloon, for example, and according to the 2 U.S. senior officials, the balloon was able to gather crucial information from several American military sites after it was spotted in U.S. borders. The balloon was later shot down. However, the Chinese government claimed that it was not their spy balloon, but rather just an unmanned airship that accidentally flew off course and went into the U.S. territory. And then they were pretty upset that we were accusing them of using a spy balloon.
Yeah, I do know that this is not the only incident that we've seen of Chinese intelligence making its way into the United States somehow, or for spying or gaining information. I know, I especially remember, I think it was back in 2020, there was the Chinese hackers who reportedly hacked into the United States Department and their computer networks of over 100 companies in the United States and elsewhere, stealing things like secret plans for a, quote, supersonic anti-ship missile, as well as a American F-35 stealth fighter.
Well, trade definitely contributes to a huge part of the tension that we see between U.S. and China today. Another huge part that contributes to their increasing tension is with the disputes around Taiwan on recognizing it either as its own independent government as a country or not. So a little background on this. So in 1949, the Chinese Communist Party took over mainland China, and then they were the official government of mainland China. And meanwhile, the nationalist government escaped to the island by mainland, which is they called the island province of Taiwan. And however, since they shared different political ideologies, Taiwan wanted independence and did not want to be recognized as a part of the same country as the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Republic of China. And before the 1970s, the U.S. and other governments continued to recognize Taiwan belonging to mainland China. So they essentially recognized them as under one government of the People's Republic of China. Looking through China's perspective, so Taiwan, first of all, it is, I guess, before it belonged, the territory belonged to them. So one end, they do not want to give that territory away, and meanwhile, Taiwan is sitting at a really good location on the South China Sea. So if Taiwan were to become independent, that whole area with trade and the ports will be really difficult for China. So overall, Taiwan's independence would do no benefit for them. And also, since Taiwan is extremely close to China and the U.S. currently supports the independence of Taiwan, so if China ended up to recognize Taiwan as an independent government, then it basically means that there is basically a new U.S. ally, located right by the mainland China, and that will overall make China feel threatened, which is why they still have not recognized it as a country.
When we look back at that strategic position that Taiwan has in the South China Sea, one part of that that's extremely vital is the Taiwan Strait, which is a huge part not only as a trade route, but also is often wants to be used by different military ships. And as Catherine stated, as we see, the United States has been increasingly insistent in their support of the increasingly democratic Taiwan. The tensions there have grown exponentially in terms of military, especially over this past year, as we've seen that China has grown more aggressive against the United States military around Taiwan in the South China Sea.
And this aggression got to the point where White House National Security spokesman John Kirby warned Beijing that, quote, it won't be long until someone gets hurt, unquote.
And this aggressiveness is not only coming from China's side. We've also seen a great increase in of United States militarization of that zone in the past year, beefing up its presence in the Pacific with a new military base, as well as the new agreement between the United States and Japan, redesignating United States Marines, allowing them to be stationed on Japan. Overall, we've seen these tensions only increasing the military presence and military conflict of both China and the United States, especially around that area, to the point where we have United States generals, for example, General Mike Minihan, stating that, quote, my gut tells me we will fight in 2025, end quote. Where we're seeing that these generals are literally thinking that there will be an armed conflict, to the point where some are saying even some sort of a war between the United States and China in the coming years. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we have people like Representative Adam Smith disagreeing with this assessment, stating that a war with China is, quote, not only not inevitable, but highly unlikely, end quote. They say that the situation with China is very dangerous, but that people need to be cautious about saying that we are going to war, that it's inevitable, because Adam Smith instead believes that this is something that we still can work against and we still can prevent happening in this near future.
While the increasing militarization, in my opinion, would not lead to imminent threat and war, I guess, but I do understand that there are concerns over it happening, and I do understand the fear surrounding the situation, because we have seen a lot of rising tension between the countries, and since all their military bases and weapons, set up ready to go, it could be a possibility.
The thing that really concerns me most about this whole situation, that to me was what made me want to, made me agree with you wanting to do this as one of our two most significant developments of the past year, was really just how these overall tensions are affecting our global relations, right? Mm-hmm. You talked earlier about how with the increasing bans of these microchips, right, we're not able to spread information to China anymore, right?
Yeah.
And with this militarization, we're stopping the international communication and the international collaboration, which I think personally to me is seeming even more important, especially as we're beginning to, or as we have been, facing problems like climate change globally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Examples of climate change and global health relating to COVID, for example, they're all issues that do not respect borders. So it really does require international cooperation, and with this increasing tension, there is really, a barrier into achieving that cooperation and leading us to solve these imminent issues that are threatening our world. And also, I feel a big impact of this tension is really down to the people. Right now in the U.S., it's we're packed with Asian and Chinese immigrants, and at our school, we have a bunch of them too, right? Yeah, so it really, this tension affects, how, people see you and they treat you. For example, I feel at Overlake, the opinions on politics are probably, very one-sided, and also there is, pretty few opportunities for open and, free political discussions. So, at school, when I would talk about, how I miss my home in China, because I did live there for 12 years. Some of my classmates were like, oh, why would you miss a place like that who, treats people like this? They're, in a trade war with us. They want to, fire, weaponry at us. And then, but I was just I just simply, miss where I live. And it's not necessarily related to all the political things because, I have my family there. So it's just there's really little opportunities for you to, convey how you feel. And it's so, because of that, I have learned to not talk a lot about politics or relating to where I live.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to, and very common for people at Overlake to really narrow down one group just to something like politics, to one opinion, right? Taking all of China and just defining it by the conflict that our countries have between it, totally ignoring its culture and its people and all of the great things there. So today on Funduck Histocast, Catherine and I have gone over what we believe to be two of the most significant developments globally in the past year. First, looking at the development of artificial intelligence, and then looking at the growing tensions between the United States and China. But even as we've brought up a lot of negatives here where we see possible threats with AI, as well as the rising conflict between the United States and China, we still want to acknowledge that there is hope and there is a way that even we as just individual citizens can start to get involved and make the most of these situations for ourselves and our greater communities.
Yes, for example, when we looked at AI and the rapid development of AI and how it could lead to replacing of jobs, it could lead to the spread of misinformation, we can look at the bright side on how we can actively take part in the development of AI through citizen science, through participating in this research. Because as we know that, right now AI development is not perfect yet. For example, facial recognition, we still have to improve our algorithm. And to do that, we can contribute to this research and to increase this development to ensure that we get more equity and to get more accuracy with the data.
Meanwhile, when we look into our issue with these conflicts between the United States and China, well, I doubt that any one of us could go in and completely change our country's foreign policy. There definitely is work that we can do on the personal level to make our community a more welcoming place. We talked earlier about how there's great amounts of polarization, of generalization, not only for people from the United States generalizing Chinese communities, but also in all parts of politics, especially in the United States, where if we can learn to be more accepting of other people, and we can learn to not categorize people into one thing, categorize all of China as only its trade war with the United States, as only its conflict, then we can start to not only make people more welcomed, make people feel more welcomed in their day-to-day conversations and in the overlay community and greater community, but also can learn from each other and hope to make whatever may come in the future for us with these rising tensions something that we can face together as a community with strength, power, and friendship.
And love.
And love.
And love. Since this is our last episode of Funduck Histocast, and we discuss the US-China tensions, we would like to conclude today's podcast with a song to promote peace. Sonia is going to present a Chinese song, 最炫民族风。
你是我心上最美的云彩，永远用心把你留下来，留下来。
Wow, I already feel the peace. I guess it is time to say goodbye. We'll not see you next time. Bye.
Bye.